Chapter 7. Ayianna kept pace 3 feet behind Desmond and tried to remember the proper protocol of city life. Desmond hurried up the cobbled street. He waved off pleasantries as people parted and shouted greetings above the din of the crowd. Ayianna focused her eyes on the heels of his polished black boots. Finally, he stopped in front of a tall stone building on the edge of the market square. Layers of dirt and grime lined the crevices between the grey oblong stones. A weathered sign swung from the awning. The words Cuthbert's Inn had been burned into the wood. Desmond shoved open the swinging lattice door and a bell jingled, announcing their arrival. A tangled mix of body odour and sweet ale collided with her nose. Thick candles burned on long wood tables that lined the dim room. To the right, a thin, spindly railing followed the stairs and wrapped around the floors like a snake curling around a tree. At the back of the room, a small counter stood in front of a wall littered with keys and hollows. To the left, archways led into private areas, partially blocked by velvet curtains trimmed in silver. "Aye, and who do we have here?" an old man asked as he hobbled up to the worn counter. "Hello, Cuthbert. This lovely young lady is my betrothed," Desmond said. "Ooh-wee!" Cuthbert's gristly face broke into a wide grin. "I didn't know yous a getting married." Ayianna lowered her eyes and stared at the wooden floorboards, thankful the lighting was dim enough to hide her damaged, soiled clothes. Desmond probably more so. "Yes, it's about time I settle down and take a wife," Desmond said with a half-laugh. "Sure it is, with the prince on the throne soon, and looking for eligible men for his courts." Cuthbert rapped his knuckles on the counter and chuckled. "Speaking of the courts, there's a sealed letter for you from the prince himself." Cuthbert ducked under the counter and reappeared with a thick envelope, complete with the king's stamp and green ribbons of the court. Ayianna had seen a few letters bearing the crown's seal, mostly edicts concerning taxes and tithes. "Kind of heavy. Sure don't receive many of these around here." Desmond only smiled and took the letter from the innkeeper. He tucked it into his belt and allowed his cape to swing forward, hiding the yellowed parchment. "She sure's a pretty one." Ayianna's cheeks burned at the innkeeper's comment. "Yes, old man." Desmond's hand rested on Ayianna's shoulder. "She will need a meal, a room with a bath, and her clothes laundered." Desmond plopped several doulas on the table. "And something for the dog." "Woof." Ayianna bit down on her tongue and kept her eyes on Cuthbert's brown, worn boots. I'll make an exception for you. But Desmond, 2 shojos would be plenty to cover these expenses. I not have enough coins to do you proper." Cuthbert protested, shoving the coins back towards Desmond. "Keep the rest, Cuthbert. You are a good man." Desmond leaned closer and whispered into Cuthbert's ear. Ayianna tried to listen, but could only catch the words watch, find, and later. She shuffled her feet with irritation and glared at Desmond. What could he be saying that he had to hide from her? Of course," Cuthbert replied, nodding. "I see and hear most things coming and going. I have more tales to tell than minstrels have songs to sing." "Don't forget to launder the clothes as well." Desmond's eyes roved over Ayianna's damaged clothes. "On second thought, throw 'em away. I will send up new ones." "Aye, Desmond, that I will." Cuthbert backed into the door behind him and yelled, "Mary! Soup and a bath! We've a paying customer!" Desmond glanced at her. "Until evening, then." "But—" Desmond pressed his fingers gently against her lips, and a tingle ran down her spine. She stared into his bright blue eyes, too stunned to move or look away. He bent down and kissed her forehead. Ayianna stood, breathless, as he rushed out into the busy courtyard, his dark cloak swishing after him. The old man took a key from the wall and limped around the counter. "You hungry?" he asked. Ayianna nodded. She kept her eyes lowered, remembering her mother's social drills. She reached into her pocket, grasped the talisman, and whispered a prayer of protection. "Mary!" Cuthbert bellowed. An old woman popped her head around the corner of the door, her sweaty face red. Her eyes bulged behind shaggy eyebrows. "Yes, you old coot!" "Are ya deaf? We have a paying customer! Soup, bath, launder, get busy in there! I want to hear some banging pots." "I'll bang some pots all right, alongside your head." "Soup's a-comin'," she growled. The innkeeper shook his head, an exasperated expression deepening his wrinkles. Mary ducked back into the kitchen, rattled some pots, and quickly returned with a steaming bowl of legume soup and a chunk of dark rye bread. Its pungent smell made Ayianna's stomach growl as she took a seat at a table. After eating, Ayianna followed the old man upstairs to the rooms. Cuthbert unlocked the door, handed Ayianna the key, and disappeared down the stairs. Inside the room, a darkened lamp sat on a set of drawers next to a pitcher and bowl. A small chest lay against the wall to the left. A plump mattress rested atop a wooden box beneath the opened window. Fresh linen lay folded at the edge of the bed, awaiting its next customer. Ayianna cringed. Had she ever slept in another's bed? Light streamed through the window, casting long shadows in the room. Noises lifted in from the busy courtyard below. To the right, a thin door stood ajar, exposing an adjoining room, where a large wooden basin had been filled with hot water, and a pleasant aroma wafted from the bath area. Several candles mounted on tall iron pillars flickered, giving light to the bathing room. Such luxury! Ayianna stripped and crawled into the oval barrel. Her scratches burned in the hot water, but the heat soothed her aching body. She dropped her long braid over the side of the barrel and closed her eyes. A knock at the door startled her. She jerked forward and sought a covering, but found nothing. No towel, no robe, nothing except her dirty dress. How could she be so foolish? Did she lock the outer door? "Excuse me, miss," a female voice drifted through the open doorway. "I've been sent to fetch your clothes. I have a fresh towel for you. May I come in?" Ayianna stammered. She moved closer to the edge of the barrel. "Yes." A maid entered, dressed in a simple gray smock. She nodded her head and placed a dingy towel and folded nightgown on the chair by the door. "I'll take your old clothes, miss. Is there anything else I can bring you?" Ayianna shook her head as she squeezed closer to the side of the tub. "Could you lock the door, please?" The maid smiled and nodded. She scooped up the dirty clothes and left. Ayianna leaned back against the barrel. How could she have been so foolish to forget to lock the door? Liam's nails clicked along the wooden floor, and she poked her wet nose over the barrel's edge. "Oh, Liam, what are we to do? I can't imagine what we will tell Mother when we return. I can hear her now. 'Where have you been? What were you thinking?' And then, when we tell her about Taryn and Father, she'll certainly lose her mind. She'll really be expecting me to save the family by marrying Desmond. It's hopeless, isn't it? Or maybe hope doesn't look like hope. Sure doesn't feel like it." Ayianna glanced at her faithful companion and smiled. Liam sat there listening, her tail sweeping the floor. Ayianna closed her eyes and allowed the hot water to ease the ache and stiffiness from her body. The broken blisters on her hands throbbed beneath the hot water. Sleep tugged at her mind and scattered her thoughts. She slowly sat up. The last thing she wanted was to fall asleep in the bath and drown. The thought of people finding her dead and naked horrified her. With new vigor, she scrubbed the dirt off and ignored the stabbing pain arising from the broken blisters on her hands. After the bath, she dressed in the nightgown and closed the shutters. The room darkened, the perfect for sleeping. She dragged her tired body onto the bed. A faint lavender scent lifted from the mattress. At least it smelled clean. She yawned and, hugging the pillow to her head, and slipped away.